The issue of simultaneous elections to Lok Sabha and legislative assemblies has been frequently in news. So let us have a holistic discussion about the same now. In this session, we would look at the definition of simultaneous elections to Lok Sabha and legislative assemblies. We'll see when the cycle got disrupted. We'll see the arguments in favor of these simultaneous elections. What are the impediments in having a simultaneous elections? What are the legal changes that have to be made for simultaneous elections? What is the way ahead? And lastly, how the situation is in other countries. To start off with, let us first look at the basic concepts of democracy and parliamentary form of government. Democracy. Democracy is a form of government that derives its sanction from the will of the people. So democracy is a form of government that derives its sanction from the will of people. Therefore, for any party to come to power, to continue in power, and to discharge any functions, it needs the sanction of the people. So 1, to come to power, 2, to continue in power, 3, to discharge any functions, it needs the sanction of the people. Next, parliamentary form of government. The essentials of parliamentary form of government are: number 1, executive can remain in office only as long as it commands majority support in the lower house of the legislature. Number 2, the executive is answerable or accountable to the legislature for any and every action taken by it. These are the essentials of a parliamentary form of government. So we have seen what democracy is. We have seen what parliamentary form of government is. Now, let us look at the main issue of simultaneous elections. This term simultaneous elections has been defined by Niti Aayog. Accordingly, the definition is structuring the Indian election cycle in a manner that elections to Lok Sabha and legislative assemblies are synchronized together. Simply put, elections to Lok Sabha and legislative assemblies being held at the same time and once in 5 years is simultaneous elections. We have had such simultaneous elections held in 1951-52, 57, 62 and in 67. The cycle got disrupted for the first time in 67 with the premature dissolution of various legislative assemblies. The Lok Sabha also got prematurely dissolved in 1970. Subsequently, there have been many instances of premature dissolutions of either Lok Sabha or various legislative assemblies. There are 2 reasons for premature dissolution of assembly or Lok Sabha and for the entire cycle to get disrupted. What are they? Number 1, a section of legislators in the legislature withdrawing their support to the executive. With withdrawal of support by a section of legislators, the executive loses majority support in the lower house and is forced to step down. And in such a context, there would be a premature dissolution of assembly or Lok Sabha, thereby leading to a fresh election. Secondly, if the party in power opines that there is a favorable political climate, in case they go to elections, they could get re-elected, they go for a premature dissolution. Be it for either of the 2 reasons, there have been premature dissolution of lower house of legislatures, and that is how the cycle got disrupted. The cycle got disrupted to such an extent that we now have an election in one or the other state, in one region or the other, almost every year. So every year we have been witness to election in one or the other state or in some part of the country. Now, with the cycle getting disrupted and with frequent elections almost on an annual basis, The proposal for simultaneous elections has been made for the first time by Election Commission in 1983. The same has been reiterated by the Law Commission headed by Mr. Justice Jeevan Reddy in 1999 in its 170th report. Come 2015, Parliamentary Standing Committee on Personal, Public Grievances, Law and Justice have also reiterated this calls for simultaneous elections to Lok Sabha and Legislative Assemblies. The same has been time and again repeated and supported by former President as well as the current President, the current Vice President and many other eminent personalities. Now all of them have been speaking for the cause of simultaneous elections because there are many disadvantages with frequent elections, and all these disadvantages with frequent elections speak up for the cause of simultaneous elections to Lok Sabha and Legislative Assembly. Now let us look at the drawbacks or the issues with frequent elections which speak for the cause of holding simultaneous elections. Firstly, election expenditure. The expenditure incurred by the Election Commission, by the contestants and the political parties have all increased exponentially with each passing election. With increasing expenditure by the contestants and the political parties, it leads to corruption in public life. In fact, Indian electoral excise is the costliest affair across the world. Take the case of general election of 2019, $8 billion have been spent by the political parties. In fact, there is much more than this, which is unaccounted. 2. With frequent elections, leaders of various political parties are forced to speak in a politically motivated tone, thereby adversely affecting the center and state relations and thus the federal structure in this country. Nextly, though prohibited by the law, though anti-constitutional, it is unfortunate that the political leaders polarize people on the basis of language, caste, religion, community, so on and so forth. With such polarization happening on a frequent basis, there has been sharpening of fault lines on the basis of caste, religion, language, community, so on and so forth. With sharpening fault lines on these irrational criteria, unity and diversity in this country is getting affected. As we all know, unity and diversity has been the foundational principle of this country. Nextly, Model Code of Conduct. With notification for elections being announced, the Model Code of Conduct comes into effect. During the Model Code of Conduct, no financial grant can either be made nor be announced. No scheme can be announced or implemented. Even developmental works like construction of roads, provision of drinking water, so on and so forth, are all forced to be put on hold during this process, thereby putting the developmental programs on hold. Nextly, now these frequent elections also disrupt the normal public life, like political meetings, political rallies, primetime debates over television and mass media regarding elections, thereby diverting attention from the main issues like employment, education, health, so on and so forth. Nextly, whenever elections are held, Election Commission deploys security personnel and other staff for that purpose. Now with frequent elections, frequently the security personnel are deployed, other staff are deployed for this purpose, which is against their intended purpose. So the CRPF or the Central Armed Police Forces are frequently deployed for the purpose of conducting elections. In fact, that is not the purpose for which they have been recruited and are being trained. Now with frequent elections, be the party in power or the other political parties having an eye on elections, Seeking electoral dividends, they generally go slow on policy matters and at times could also lead to policy paralysis, as we have seen in our earlier times. Now, all these are the drawbacks of having frequent elections in this country. Now, all these drawbacks with frequent elections speak up for the cause of holding simultaneous elections to Lok Sabha as well as legislative assemblies. Now, to have simultaneous elections, it requires many legal amendments or legal changes. Indian Constitution has to be amended firstly. Articles like 83, 85, 172, 174 have to be amended. 83 provides for the duration of Lok Sabha. 85 provides for the dissolution of Lok Sabha. 172 provides for the duration of Legislative Assembly. 174 provides for the dissolution of Legislative Assembly. Now, all these four articles have to be amended to facilitate simultaneous elections to Lok Sabha as well as Legislative Assembly. Nextly, this no confidence motion is provided in the rules of procedure. It should either altogether be removed from the rules of procedure or it should be amended with incorporation of confidence motion. So whensoever a no confidence motion is introduced, it should simultaneously be backed with a confidence motion to elect a subsequent party to power. Lastly, many provisions of Representation of People's Act 1950-51 should also be amended for the purpose of having simultaneous elections to Lok Sabha and legislative assemblies. With such large number of legal changes required for simultaneous elections, it is obvious that there has to be a political consensus. Now let us look at the stand of various political parties regarding the issue of simultaneous elections. Now some parties like Bharatiya Janata Party, Assam Gan Parishad, AIADMK, All India Anna Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam, have all been supportive of the idea of simultaneous elections to Lok Sabha and Legislative Assembly. Some other parties like Indian National Congress, Trinamool Congress, Communist Party of India, Nationalist Congress Party are all opposed to the idea or proposal of simultaneous elections. They opine that this is anti-constitutional, anti-democratic, impractical and unworkable in nature. They also opine that this would threaten the federal structure in this country. Now, let us look at the impediments in holding simultaneous elections. Firstly, there are many logistical and other issues to be overcome by the election for the purpose of having simultaneous elections. It is to be noted that Election Commission takes various factors into consideration for the conduct of elections, like geographical factors, climatic factors, deployment of adequate security personnel, something like EVMs, VVPATs. Now all these factors should be taken into consideration. All these factors should be accommodated for the purpose of conducting simultaneous elections. Though tough, this is something which can be overcome by the Election Commission. But this is one factor to be considered for the purpose of simultaneous elections. Secondly, when simultaneous elections are held, there is chance of either the national or local issues taking precedence of one over the other. Now, national issues could take precedence over local issues, or the local issues could take precedence over the national issues, thereby doing more harm than good for one or the other political parties. The most important being effect on federal democratic character and how this undermines the principle of parliamentary form of government. Now, in a scenario of simultaneous elections to Lok Sabha Legislative Assembly, Lok Sabha and Legislative Assemblies would have a fixed term of 5 years. Midway through the term, supposing that the executive at the national level or the executive in some of the states loses majority support in the lower houses, they would still be continuing in power till the end of the term. A party permitted to continue in power for the full term despite losing majority support in lower house amounts to violation of the principle of parliamentary form of government. A party continuing in power despite not having the sanction of the people amounts to violation of democratic principle in this country. We are all aware that be it the parliamentary form of government or the democratic character of Indian Constitution are added to the basic structure of Indian Constitution. Simultaneous elections provide us with the advantage of certainty and continuity for a full term of 5 years. But the advantage of such simultaneous elections should not undermine the principle of parliamentary form of government, should not erode the democratic character of Indian system. If an attempt is made for the purpose of simultaneous elections, and if it consequently violates the parliamentary form of government, if it consequently erodes the democratic character of Indian system, it amounts to violation of basic structure of Indian Constitution, and the courts most likely might not permit this to happen. Because any change to a feature or provision that is a part of basic structure is not permitted and shall not be permitted by the courts in this country. So these are something which can be overcome, but there are two major issues which is not so easy to be overcome in a scenario of simultaneous elections to Lok Sabha and Legislative Assembly. Therefore, the idea of simultaneous elections as a theoretical concept might seem to be very good, might have a large number of benefits, but the same is fraught with many difficulties as well. Now, what is the way ahead? How do we proceed further? Firstly, to start off with, instead of having simultaneous elections to Lok Sabha and Legislative Assemblies, let us first start off with simultaneous elections to Legislative Assembly and local bodies. Local self-government is a state subject, number one. State government as well as local bodies are inextricably linked with each other. Therefore, to start off with, it is better to work on an idea of having simultaneous elections to Legislative Assembly and local bodies. Next, the members of Union Executive should be prevented from canvassing in a state election. There have been numerous instances in which the Prime Minister, members of the Union Cabinet have skipped the ongoing parliamentary proceedings and have attended the election rallies, electoral meetings in states where elections are being held. Now, supposing that elections are taking place to the Legislative Assembly of Rajasthan. Take BJP as an example. Why should Mr. Narendra Modi come and campaign or attend the election meetings in Rajasthan? BJP has a state president. BJP has a party president at the national level. Tomorrow, if BJP wins the election in Rajasthan, it is not Mr. Modi who would act as a CM. They have their chief ministerial candidate. So the members of the Union Executive should be barred from canvassing, should be barred from participating any electoral exercise that takes place in a state. Lastly, supposing that a house has a 5-year term. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-year term. There has to be a provision according to which, in case of a premature dissolution, the newly constituted house should be permitted only to act for the remainder of the term. As I explained in the very beginning, premature dissolution happens for 2 reasons. One section of legislators withdrawing their support so that they could form the government in a freshly held election. 2, the government on its own going for election so that it can get another full term. Now, the incentive for premature dissolution would drastically come down provided if the newly elected house could serve only for the remainder of the term, but not for a full term. With such a provision, the incentive for premature dissolutions would drastically come down. And as a one-time incident, either by way of extension or by way of premature dissolution, we can have simultaneous elections to Lok Sabha legislative assemblies. Like for example, 2024, we can have simultaneous election to Lok Sabha and all legislative assemblies, for which the term of few assemblies have to be extended, or the term of few assemblies have to be curtailed. As a one-time measure, this has to be done and simultaneous elections has to be held. And from 2024, if ever there is a premature dissolution of Lok Sabha, or if ever there is a premature dissolution of any legislative assembly, the newly constituted assembly or Lok Sabha should be permitted to serve only for the remainder of the term, but not for a full term of 5 years. In such a scenario, the possibility, scope and incentive for premature dissolutions would drastically come down. And there is every chance of the cycle continuing from there on. So this is how it can be worked on. This is a work in progress. And lastly, let us see how the situation is in other countries. Take the case of United Kingdom. United Kingdom in 2011 has come up with an act